All right. So we are recording, and I'm Aurora. I'm with Lao and Arthur. They're two monks in a cave, and I just want to make it very clear I'm not the cave here, okay? I'm the adult and I'm trying to keep this conversation going. At any rate, we want to welcome you. We also want to say that we were told that we need to make sure to ask you to subscribe and also that we need avatars. Now, we don't know what our avatars are supposed to look like. So if you would be so kind as to send us a picture so that we know who our avatars are, we would appreciate it. So please subscribe, please like, and send this and share it to any of your crazy friends. All right, Arthur, take it away.
Wow. Thank you, Aurora. I mean, obviously, Lau and I need adult supervision because we'll go God knows where, right? And we really do appreciate that, by the way. So thank you for that. But today I thought we would touch on a subject which I've heard being mentioned a lot, especially in our culture and by a lot of people, and that's of compassion. Dude, if you're gonna make those kind of faces, do you know how difficult it is to actually keep a straight face from this end? Anyways, so I've often said to others that what I found was is people who practice Tao, I found to be one of the most compassionate groups of people there are out there. And yet there seems to be what seems like a paradox. And Taoism from the side, right, is full of paradoxes. And you see that all the time until you actually get into it and have somebody explain it to you, and then it's not a paradox anymore. But the paradox that seems to come from this concept where one of the principles of Tao is nature is indifferent. And therefore, we, as part of nature, as part of emulating nature, follow that. We are indifferent towards other people. And yet, how is it that we say that we're so compassionate towards others? And I think for us today, it'd be great to talk about the definition of compassion and more importantly, how we understand it, because there's many, many definitions for it, right?
Yeah.
Take it away, brother.
All right.
Great, great intro, Arthur.
Amazing. You see, grown-ups. All right. Compassion. Definitions usually um, try to match an ideal. Here's the ideal, so that's the definition. But the ideal is never practical because it's why it's called an ideal. So there's the ideal and there's the actual. If it's not practical, it can't be Tao. It's just impossible. Because by definition, if something's not practical, it's useless. And there's no uselessness in nature, and there's no uselessness in Tao. Okay? So compassion. What is the practical nature of compassion? Today, compassion is identified as anything that makes somebody not have to feel anything they don't want to feel so they can only have the good feelings they ever want to feel. And if you make me feel anything I don't want to, you have encroached upon some sovereign fucking entitlement. But more importantly, you're not compassionate because I should never have to feel bad. This is dumb. This is absolutely horrible for the human psyche and resilience, and it will lead you tenderly, lovingly, to the fucking chopping block where you will have your emotional head cut to hell off. Okay? Simple as that. What then is a working, practical definition of compassion?
So before you get into that, brother, is what I really heard you say in the beginning is the common definition seems to be very complex. And something very complex usually does not work in nature, right? We want simplicity when it comes to Tao. So what would you say is the simple definition?
The simple working definition is the highest good or the highest benefit. Good is really a terrible English word to use here. The highest benefit or utility for the person in front of you. Now, I know this is a very difficult nuance, so I'm going to talk it through a few minutes. That's a good thing about podcasts. When in fact you see somebody going through whatever they're going through, you have some choices up front. You can intervene, you can not intervene, or you can allow them to come to you and use you as a tool of their own intervention. Those are your three sort of broad choices. And they have their tributaries and rivulets, but that's where they basically sit. A Taoist, when they talk about indifference, it's because Taoists typically will never intervene. Why? Because we don't know what your goddamn highest benefit and good is at that moment. So I'm not going to sit there and put on you what I think you should be. That's no different than John Calvin, right? That's no different than Puritanism. That's no different than a lot of fundamentalism. I know the better is good for you. That's tyranny. That's despotism. And people think, no, but I had a good intention. I can't be a despot. More damage can be done with an open hand than a closed fist. Okay? So intervention is not a Taoist way. So when we see somebody struggling and going through something, and we don't intervene, it's not because we are not compassionate. It's because we are supremely compassionate to understand, I don't know what your highest good is there. If you come to me, then I am not intervening. I am the tool by which you are intervening in your own life. When people want change in their life and you go to them to help them change, you are doing them a disservice. You are not being compassionate. Because if they wanted help, they would have come for it. Because there's a feedback mechanism to everything, right? Let me give you this sort of grand Taoist way of looking at it. A red giant, a normal sun like ours, will eventually become bigger and bigger. And so it eventually will consume Mercury, then Venus, then the Earth itself, and then Mars. And what it will do with all that constituent space and mass that it consumes in its growth will be to take in all of the feedback from the universe and then spit out hydrogen, carbon, lithium, helium, boron, whatever the constituent elements that are required. It is a red giant that has the pressure and the heat that can feed that back. So in Tao, it will give you exactly what you need in the moment you need it. Not some storehouse you can feel all certain before, not something to catch up so you feel desperate, but in the moment. Earth has a very similar mechanism, right? You have volcanoes that put out chlorofluorocarbons and massive amounts of other things that is necessary to maintain the gaseous nature of this planet, which includes pHs and ozones and everything else that's far beyond what most people who think scientists know. They don't dig. It's too complex. I'm just sorry. It's too damn complex. But interestingly enough, women on their nipple, when you breastfeed a baby, there are bumps, there are glands called Montgomery glands. And the buccal mucosa inside the child's mouth, when it nurses, sends a feedback loop to the mother's hypothalamus, which sends the right antibodies, right prolactin, and everything else to that baby so it gets exactly what it needs in the exact moment it needs it. Okay? Which tells you in heaven, man, and earth, there are three representatives which are extremely indicative that exactly what you need is exactly in that moment. No exceptions ever.
If you're able to take advantage of it.
Even so, your skill, your kung fu is on you. But knowing that the resources are there, now true, in effect, if you don't know they're effectively they're not. But it's never not there.
Right.
But you have to know and you have to use it. And so by gradation, it will get worse and worse and worse until it gets bad enough until you go, oh shit, I can't live this way anymore. Then the feedback loop will go, here's everything that you've been totally ignoring, avail yourself of it or not. And if you see a little guy or gal sitting next to a damn lake, drinking their baijiu and laughing at seemingly nothing, that's probably, the Taoist going, and you come up, oh, the Tao led me to, which they're usually going, fuck. Great, all right. I mean, why? That seems so lame. But they're not going to come to you. No one's coming to save you. You don't need to be saved. It's all right in front of you. Salvation is always in front of you, right? The hidden meaning of grace is that life is an unearned gift. And everything in it's an unearned gift. There's the hidden meaning of grace. But compassion is knowing that and not intervening in someone else's path.
That's beautiful.
Because if you don't know what their highest good is and you intervene, you're most likely to fuck it up. And more is lost with good intention and wonderful. You're virtue signaling. Stop. It's atrocious. It's gross. Leave people alone. Let them fall down. If you love them, you must let them fall down.
So when you're in a state of humility, you understand that, you see yourself clearly, so you understand that you have no ability to actually understand what that person needs in that moment. So that's why that state of being able not to interfere with that person until that person asks for help, right? Versus the other state, being in a state of arrogance, I know what's better for you, right?
Yep.
And I will definitely help you get to the right place.
Yeah. And I will tell you that most people who have that state of arrogance haven't had it bad enough. I'm not going to say they haven't had it bad, but they haven't had it bad enough, because when you've been truly beaten the hell down by life and you get back up and you realize, oh shit, that was for my own good. It wasn't happening to me.
Right.
It happened. But if you get to a real state of humility and grace, you start to realize, oh shit, that actually happened for me. And you realize that as hard as it was, it's actually equal and commensurate to the hardness and thickness of your fucking skull shit inside of you. And that it was complete compassion that you got that ass whipping. It's almost like the universe has Stockholm syndrome as part of its, toolkit.
I gotta say that my skull must be like the armor of a tank then.
Right there with you, brother.
It takes a lot to get through that freaking skull, I'll tell you.
But if somebody had ever intervened in that struggle, and you hear the tropes getting trotted out, oh, the butterfly must, be struggle against the thing. I get it. That's great. That's lovely, Chongsa. But the metaphor is incomplete if you just take it to the cocoon. The caterpillar is walking along. The caterpillar is just a tube that eats and poops. That's it. It's an eat and poop tube. That's all. Has no vestigial appendages. It's just making its damn way. All of a sudden, one day, it starts spinning a cocoon. And everything inside of that damn caterpillar liquefies like a big bag of snot, like a thing of pus. You think it feels good to liquidate every physical structure you've ever had? No, it doesn't feel good at all. Then when you start to reform, you start to metamorphosize, you're now having to grow. Cocoon's not growing, so you're growing until you burst forth. Now you got wings, you got fucking legs, you got fucking antenna, and you're no longer terrestrial, you're non-terrestrial. And you're looking back at all these other ones, and they're sitting there going, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful!" And it's like, go get in the fucking cocoon if you think.
Wait a second, don't you come out without a digestive system or a mouth? So basically, you got wings, but you can't poop anymore. I mean, I don't know.
Everything that you ever knew no longer applies.
Right.
They sit there going, "Oh, how beautiful," and you're like, "Oh, fuck yeah." But it's compassionate to let it go through its process.
Yes.
Because the hubris of thinking you know what their process is and you know what they need is what's going to cause you to rip that cocoon open, and you're going to screw up their whole life because you had all the good intention, but really it's just because you couldn't sit with your own shit, so you couldn't watch them go through theirs. But if you're working through your own shit, you wouldn't be able to watch them because you'd have shit to do. People who have shit to do don't have a lot of time to meddle. People who have time to meddle, none to do.
It's interesting because every kind of school I wound up at, it's always the first year students that are trying to teach you something. And it's always the teacher who isn't teaching. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand that until I became the teacher. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to teach. It's if you don't want it bad enough, if you're not asking for help enough, there's no reason for me to open my mouth. And yet a first year student, regardless whether it was asked or not, he or she was asked or not, will always be trying to share something.
There's an old saying, it's Kabbalistic in nature, predates a lot of modern contemporary Semitic religions, but it says, beware of the neophytes, beware of the acolytes. They're the ones that, storm the temple with knives. My God is better than your God. It's always the new converts. They're always the one who are the zealots. Be careful. Yeah. And to be quite frank with you, a good teacher doesn't teach by telling you anything. They live it. And 90% of the time you think, what an idiot. Good teachers, you always think, he's an idiot. he doesn't know anything. Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he do that? And they got all, and he's just, or she's just going about their life. And you go, they're so peculiar. They're so mysterious. And it's like, no, they're not. They're just doing shit you don't do. And that's why they're successful. Because you're only successful with your rituals, right? But compassion, leave people alone. I've got a student right now. He came to me and he said, Master Lao, I've got these problems and I want to work through these problems with you. And I was like, when they start with Master Lao, it's never a good thing.
I agree.
Just Lao's fine. And then it's like, no, I was thinking, I was like, you want to do this publicly or you want to do it privately? He's like, oh, I need to do it publicly. All right. Now, I love him. I love him enough to honor him. I'm going to honor him tonight because he's given me a premise and he's like, help me solve the problem in this premise. If I'm compassionate, I can't accept his fucking premise because his premise is bullshit and that's what's keeping him fucking stuck in the first place. So I'm going to fucking shit all over his premise. And he's going to be like, but why aren't you helping me? Because that premise cannot be helped. It's stupid. It's arbitrary. It's what you need to have control and be a despot. And I hate despots. If I could kill despots, I would for fun, just because. That's what I was born to do.
But only on the weekends.
You know what? I probably do it on Wednesday too. Doesn't have much going on these days. So I figure, fuck it. Let's just despots. No, it's just everybody has a nature, you know? And I don't like tyranny. I like people to have their own sovereignty, which is another big thing for Taoism. Confucianism took over and they wanted to control the realm. And Buddhism, by extension, wanted to be the lapdog of the realm so they didn't pay taxes. They could sort of impose, you know, their don't suffer, so let's suffer type, you know, whatever. And Taoists never sought control or anything. We're just like, leave us alone. 90% of the time, every new dynasty was like, hey, let's kill the Taoists. Because it's hard to be like, I'm the son of man, I'm the son of heaven, I'm God on earth. And some, you know, guy with a top knot and black robes being like, hey, Bob, this is a nice robe, man. Your ass looks amazing in those robes. You know, I wasn't going to say anything, Bob, but you got it today, buddy. Good job. How do you get to sit there and tell everybody you're an autocratic God on earth when you got this guy walking around being like, great job, Bob. Great job. Your ass.
Well, what's interesting is, you know, Mao, with his Cultural Revolution, killed a lot of Taoists, obviously.
Everybody did.
But
Yep.
He protected his advisor.
Of course.
He had a Taoist advisor and he protected him.
So does Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping's got a Taoist advisor.
I met him. I spent 3 hours with him.
Yeah, that's Li Guangfu, but you know that our Shifu is also a personal advisor to Mao.
I've
Yeah.
seen.
And the thing is it's like, yeah, you want that for yourself. You want somebody who's going to help you to be grounded in reality, not just close the door to everybody else so they only got my word for it. Yeah. And Taoists are just like, I mean, okay, that sounds lame. But irrespective, you don't see Li Guangfu or Zhang Shuo, you don't see either one of them being like, yes, I believe. They're just like, I mean, you probably shouldn't do that, but okay. But if one guy can do that to 1.5 billion people, obviously those 1.5 billion aren't that invested in it not happening. You know, so they have got to go through whatever they have to go through. Right?
Right.
The Cultural Revolution happened, and Taiwan and Thailand are better for it. So you're just moving shit around on the board, man. Nothing lost, nothing gained. It's just stuff.
So,
I don't, you know how it works? I don't.
so being compassionate from a Taoist point of view is having the humility not to interfere with other people's paths.
Any paths of anything,
Yeah.
typically. Now, people say, well, what if you're in this particular situation and you don't have a choice? If it's in front of you, you got to do what's in front of you. You're never going to live your life in a vacuum where you never have ripples affect anyone.
If somebody's drowning, you'll probably try to save them.
Or you don't, if you can't swim.
Right.
Either way, what happened in that moment is what needed to happen in that moment, and you have to content yourself with that. When you do the, oh, if I would have been more virtuous, or if you'd have had 6 arms, you'd have probably been blind by now. All right, stop the would and should shit.
Could have, would have, should have.
Yeah, it is what it is. You know, somebody's drowning, you don't know how to swim, they're going to drown, or you're both going to drown. Someone's drowning and you don't know how to swim, you go in there, maybe you live, maybe you die. But it's a moot point with compassion. It's what skill do you have? You want to be the most compassionate person? Go learn those skills which make you excel at your own life, and then by extension, demonstrate as an exemplar those skills to help other people do the same. You will have so much shit to do, you won't have time to meddle in other people's life. You'll actually be contributing something important that actually matters to the world. And when people get done, they'll say, we did it all by ourselves.
I have a question. So, do Taoists believe in karma like Buddhists? And, you know, one of the things that people talk a lot about is the unfairness of nature. Okay, so why did why did you get a big one?
Wait,
He didn't.
who talks about that?
What's that?
Who talks about that? Bring them out here. We'll deal with them.
The people who didn't
So
get
let
the
me ask you about what do Taoists, or what about at least the two of you Taoists? What do you think about karma, and how do you perceive that in your school of Taoism?
Wow, that's a wonderful can of worms to open. Thank you, Arorah, for that.
No worries.
So let's talk about it this way. Is it being in a state of arrogance or humility to think that the universe actually gives a shit enough to follow you and 7 billion or however many souls there are around every second of every day, weighing your actions based on what? The arbitrary rules of your current society? So, I mean, that sounds to me like a state of arrogance. That sounds to me like we expect that we're the only ones here, that the universe was created only for us, and more importantly, was created to basically be with us every second of the day. Just sounds like a lot of work for a couple of billion assholes.
To add on to that, that's a very Western, very Semitic idea that there's some guy walking or girl walking around with a notepad. Ooh, you see, like someone's keeping a fucking record.
Judgment Day.
Yeah, there's some celestial abacus. First off, the universe does not wake up with its Rolodex going, what do I want to fuck with today? Ooh, this asshole. Now, generally people will do that because they lack significance in their life, right? One of the foundational needs of the Hun to be significant. If you're so important that the universe has got you on speed dial and can't wait to fuck with you, you're telling everybody, you're showing your cards that I don't really feel that important, but I should be important. Second of all, karma, even the Buddhists don't really understand karma. Now, if you get like a lama or something, and then you've actually sat with it a while, Buddha's ideas of karma were very straightforward. And now you have to understand how simians, our species specifically, and simians, yes, mean monkeys, but no, it doesn't mean monkeys. There's mountains in Ethiopia called the Simian Mountains. And so our species purportedly originated from there. So we are a part of the species that comes from the Simian Mountains, hence we are simians. Okay. We have this justice complex. Good gets good, bad gets bad. Good never gets bad, bad never gets good. That's it. So if you get birthday cake, I get birthday cake. And if you get birthday cake and I didn't get birthday cake, even if I don't want birthday cake, I gotta fuck you up. I need birthday cake. And so this is where the idea that people have of karma is that it's gotta be just. It's gotta be equal. No, that's your birthday cake shit. That's your fucking monkey birthday cake. Karma is simply cause, effect. Simple as that. Karma. There's no connotation to that.
So
Karma.
if bad things happen to you, it's not because they were meant to happen to you. It's because you weren't paying attention. It's because you weren't taking responsibility for your life. It's because you were blaming everybody else around you for the things. Oh, this person, they stole money from me. Well, who picked that business partner? Oh, my wife or my husband cheated on me. Who picked that spouse? Take responsibility.
What were the other circumstances? You see, but here's the thing, and here's my contention with this whole idea of bad things happening. Who the fuck are you to say it's bad? Sometimes it's an incredible stroke of luck to have calamity happen to you. Sometimes it's a terrible curse to get what you want, right? It's
Most often.
it's so simplistic. It's childish, and I'm going to say that not in a condescending, patriarchal way, but in a very specifically using the word childish. It's an immature way of looking at it. Black is white, white is white. That's it. One's good, one's bad. It's oversimplification. The universe is not simple. You must have a cell rip itself apart in order for there to go through mitosis. You can be like, it's wonderful. There's a parent cell and then there's daughter cells. Well, first off, I thought gender was a social construct. So how can there be daughter cells? You damn scientists. But secondly, it's a goddamn thing ripping itself apart. I don't know what a better metaphor for being a parent is. You rip yourself apart, everything that you were as a human, as an individual, in order to give and bring this life into the planet, and then spend 20 years of that damn thing's life, giving it everything for it to have resistance against you to go do its own thing. Now, is it good or is it bad?
So basically, this is something we talk a lot about is perspective, right? And this one of the reasons we're actually doing this particular podcast is to bring different perspectives to people's lives. And as you were talking about, who knows what's good and bad in the moment, right? We're such limited little creatures with such little perspective on the grand scheme of things, on the universe, on whatever it is. I mean, we barely have enough perspective to get through the day most of the time, right? That we can't identify, right now somebody won $1 billion in the lottery. You think that's a good thing?
Maybe.
We'll see how that life works out. But let me just tell you from my own perspective, from my own life, in 2008, at a very nice young age of 36, I had a pretty massive heart attack, which I talk about freely. And lying on that operating table, I was like, this is the worst thing. This is the worst thing ever. This is blah, blah, blah. And I'll be honest with you, it turned out to be the best thing that happened to me in my life. And for two reasons. Number one, the way my wife took care of me in those 3 days that I was in the hospital made me fall so much more deeper in love with her than anything I could have imagined going through. And it made us much stronger as two people walking down the path could be. But the second thing is, the teacher that I had at the time didn't even bother showing up until the last minute. And then he was kind of an asshole. And that threw me out of his teachings. It threw me out of the temple. And if that didn't happen, I would never, ever find my own voice. I would never, ever get to where I am today, which I'm so in love with. I love sitting here with the two of you and having this conversation. I couldn't imagine a better life. I couldn't imagine a more amazing moment right now than this and everything. But that would have never happened if that happened. So what I thought was the worst thing that happened to me turned out the absolute best thing in hindsight.
So are you saying that your teacher abandoning you in
Yes.
a time of need, even maybe judging you, was a compassionate thing for him to do?
No, because he was avoiding his own fate. He was so distraught that he missed all the symptoms, that his ego just got in the way so much that he was just basically, he couldn't handle it.
Right. But at the same time, it was compassionate for you, wasn't compassionate for him. So you see that it was both compassionate and not compassionate simultaneously, which is why we talk about the Taoist Navy, right? It has to be and not be simultaneously. I have the very same thing, but in reverse. I grew up with an amazing teacher. He was incredible. I almost couldn't, even looking back now, I almost think, God, this is a perfect human being. He didn't try to be perfect. He didn't try to be anybody else. He didn't live by arbitrary standards of anything. He just did what was ever the moment. He was amazing. There were times when he was a dick. There was a time when but it was all contextually perfect. But when I left the temple, I thought, I mean, he's just a teacher. And I'm really grateful to him and I really love him. But at the same time, I'm ready to do some real stuff in life. And then I fall down the goddamn staircase of life all the way to the bottom and realize, in retrospect long, because when he left, when I left the temple, and then he left not long, he didn't tell me he left. And he went back to China, and then he fucking died. And I didn't find out for like a year and like 4 months. So I finally got to some mountain where his tomb was. And I was just like, I can't believe he did this. Like I was constantly, I was 21, maybe 20. And I was like, I can't fucking believe he did this to me. Like he just went, he didn't say nothing. He just went and he died. And they were like, yeah, he just said he was going to go on a trip. He was going to go on a journey. And we asked if he wanted to pack rice. He was like, no, that's okay. I'll travel light. Being a Buddhist, nobody thinks anything about that. He sat down to meditate. Gone. It didn't make me happier or, well, oh, he went to, I'm like, oh, so he did that shit on purpose. And so I asked him, I was like, the monks that were there, I was like, did he say nothing? And he was just like, no, he was pretty nonchalant about it. He was just gone. And I was like, I can't understand why he wouldn't contact me. And they're like, well, you were a student. Why didn't you contact him before? How come you just found out? And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, that was a kick. Because, of course, it was about me in those days. And then I go farther and I get teachers that are abusive and I get teachers that are just absolute asses, completely inappropriate, which I do consider some of my best teachers, actually, in a lot of ways. But then I start to realize what a curse it was to have a great teacher at the beginning. Because only decades after he was gone, that I start to realize I was a spoiled goddamn brat because I never knew how good I had it because I never not had it that good. You know what I mean? You come from a very turbulent background to this amazing, and you're like, wow, but you don't know why it's amazing because you have no context. And then when you get, and only after years, and I realized the gift of him just getting out of my way. Right? And it's like, and he did that on purpose. I know he did it on purpose, but I know he did it because he loved me. That's a compassionate thing to do. Be like, well, I know you lost your parents. I know you're dying. All these people around you are dying, whatever. But I'm just going to go fucking leave and die and not tell you too, and unpack that. But he was a teacher to the end, everything. And so I start to go, damn, he had to let me fall down for everything he ever taught me to open up. Did it hurt? Yes. But see, compassion has no correlation to hurt. Sometimes compassion hurts. Sometimes compassion doesn't hurt. Sometimes it feels good. Sometimes it feels like nothing at all. Hurt and harm are not the same thing. And sometimes they can even harm you in order to love you. If you can't and won't let go of certain paradigms, certain blueprints of life. It doesn't condone it. And you don't think like, so we should let people, no, it's not about condoning it. It's accepting that sometimes your ass is so thick and you are holding on so tight. Sometimes drastic things have to be done to get you to let the hell go.
To allow you to make mistakes, right? I mean, how many people won't allow themselves to actually make mistakes in life and therefore they can't move forward?
They do nothing. They do nothing.
So I want to ask another question about, what about consideration, having consideration for other people?
It's good. It's a good idea because it shows a sign of respect for yourself. It shows some respect for them. But again, all of these words can be really obfuscated because, well, I don't want to make anybody feel bad because I'm considerate. No, you timid fuck. You're not considerate. You're mediocre. You're milquetoast. Do your best to respect the people around you, but you also have to do your best to respect what's going on in front of you. For example, let me give you an example. I had a really important breakfast with somebody that I absolutely adore. I was not in the humors, and there was a lot of things going on that I could have put off, but if I do, it's just going to be worse. So I text them last minute, look, dumpster fire, can't do this. Now, you would say, well, that was inconsiderate. You didn't make your appointment. No, I would have been inconsiderate making that appointment with the humors that I was in and then putting off something that's only going to make situations and matters worse.
Right.
So it's not, consideration is not a matter of doing what's nice and good, because nice and good will often get you right into a big wood chipper of life. You've got to do what's contextually the best for that
In that
situation,
moment,
as you know.
right? In that moment, just go with your instincts. What's the best path forward? Not what perhaps society tells you, or keep that appointment at any cost. I'd be an asshole showing up to this appointment because my mind would be somewhere else, and I'd be the worst company in the best case scenario. That's a wonderful story.
But but simultaneously, if you can't hold your shit together, if you don't understand yourself, if you're an asshole to yourself, there's no way you can be considerate to other people. Because if you're an asshole to yourself, you're going to be asshole to everybody around you by extension, and you're going to be completely unconscious of it. That's not very considerate either. Don't use people's lives as your litter box because you can't deal with your own shit.
Well, once again, it goes back to take responsibility for your own life and don't blame anybody else. And what I love in AA, Alcohol Anonymous, they have a wonderful, and I pick up a lot of stuff from them because they have wonderful things. But they say if you're pointing your finger at someone, there's 3 pointing back at you.
True story.
Right? So be responsible for yourself first. Be considerate to yourself first. Be respectful of yourself first. Embrace yourself first, and then you can deal with others.
And to be honest with you, it's so much easier when you really get good here in terms of accepting who and what you actually are. Then you can always work on stuff. It's not just because you accept it doesn't mean you're not going to work on it. It's just
right.
That's what you are in this part of the journey. Then it's so easy. For example, there are times when I am a destructive ass. I love to break shit. I love to just destroy beautiful things. And people will go like, why do you do that? And it's like, well, because I've got a monster inside of me, and he's got to have some sort of habitat. If not, he's going to come out sideways in parts of my life I don't want him to. So I've got to give him reign as well. I've got to give him a place for his nature, right? And so when I see somebody being angry or destructive or something, I get it, and I can be as compassionate as the day is long, because I could be like, and then they're sitting with all these turfs and turbid feelings, and everybody around them is going, oh no, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, get you after that bitch, skin that bitch alive, do your thing, I'll sit with you, I'm perfectly fine with it. Why? Because I'm fine with mine. And then when they're done, they can be like, what did I do? It's like, you missed a step. You don't have a context where that monster can be that monster. I make context where I do that. I don't go into someone's house and break their nice shit. I'll go find stuff that, okay, and just break it. I'll go and shoot shit. I'll go blow shit up. I go and make context where that monster can go play to his heart's content, and then he stays docile. He doesn't stay under pressure. He doesn't stay irritable. It's no different than having like a dog or a wolf. You got to have somewhere like, oh, we're a dog who can dog. So you try to put him on CBD oil so he has to live a human's life. He's going to bite you eventually because he's under pressure. It's the same thing with your monster. But I can sit with other people's monsters, regardless of what that monster does, because I'm perfectly okay with mine. That's true consideration. Considering where they are, and then helping them to create a space or a habitat where they can do that in a good context. What you do is not important. It's is appropriate for the context. If you have no appropriate context for your monster, you're fucked, because it's got to come out sometime. It's always going to come out inappropriate because you made no proper context. That's inconsiderate.
So I think we have a great idea for a product now. We should make a chew toy for Lao's monster.
Oh, Lao's got a chew toy. That's got lots
of... But we can brand it,
He's got students.
Lao's chew toy. Dude, I love this idea. I'm in love. If anybody is listening to us and wants to make that a reality, please contact us. I would love to see that happen for real.
But you know what I mean? You to be considerate is to consider where they are in their context.
Yes.
Exactly. You don't know where they are. How can you be considerate?
I also want to talk about, the difference between pity and compassion, because pity.
You're killing us today.
Oh, really?
No, you're being the adult.
No, what I'm just going to give my point of view here because no one's asking for it.
You know what? Go for it.
Thank you. So, if somebody pities me, that's if somebody wants to really get me angry, it's pity me. Okay. I hate that. And
Yes.
I think pity is a kind of an empty, it's very mental. It's not, doesn't really come from here. It's just like, oh, poor thing, you know. And it doesn't require anything of you. And compassion does require something of you. And I think it is consideration, and kind of what, you know, you both have said is that, are you really considering that person? If you're just jumping in, you know, thinking that you know what's right for them, is it really considering them? Is it really considerate? And but bringing it back to ourselves, which we're doing, is that very often, you know, something happens in life. You know, you didn't get the girl, or you didn't get the guy, or you know, somebody stepped on your toe, or whatever it is, right? And you feel self pity. You know, it's like, damn, you know, I didn't get it. You know, that's what we're kind of talking about. But what I've really found is that as soon as I feel that I'm moving into something that looks like self pity, to change that to self compassion, because self compassion now opens it up into more possibilities. And that's starting to consider, really, what is it that I need right now, and how can I be self compassionate? And that might look like what you're saying, is that, you know, I just have to say, um, you know, shut up, shut your story off. You know, it's like, it's not going anywhere for you,
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, the other, you know, or go have to play with your monster, or whatever it is, you know. So I just throwing that in.
I give myself, I'm okay with self-pity on a stopwatch. I give myself about, a minute or two, like fuck, 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 punching the wall, going fuck, and then okay, great, feeling better, motherfucker. Just keep on going, do what you need to do, keep moving forward. Enough of this. So I don't like to deny it altogether, because I think denial is going to create much more problems than actually embracing it. I embrace it for a little bit, and then you move forward. And if somebody's is sitting in pity and self pity, I let that happen for however long they need that, and then we have a conversation about it, and we keep moving forward. There's no need to push it away, right? Because look, when we're kids, we all get boo-boos, and we all feel sorry for ourselves. And what we crave the most is to have somebody kiss that boo-boo, and then we just forget about it and move forward. Well, get that boo-boo, feel sorry, give it a kiss, and move forward. It's fine.
Yeah, I think pity in compassion are also yin and yangs in a certain way, because pity is in a vacuum. Pity is not real. Like you said, it's in the head, but it's not real. When you pity something, it's, well, it should have been, or oh, it shouldn't have been. And none of it's real. It's all myopic, based on some weird fucking construct that I just randomly, arbitrarily put. And you go, oh, that's too bad. And if, for example, when you pity somebody else, you know, you know, they're not real people. It's not a real situation to you. You have no real connection to that thing.
You don't have
But
to commit to anything.
there's nothing there because it's not real. They're not even really there. It's just like, it's like when you read fucking Rapunzel and you're like, oh, what a pity. She, real Rapunzel, calm the fuck down. But compassion is when it's real to you. When you see passion, you have to put some real, you have to look at, for example, I did this one time with somebody. I went and visited a pedophile in prison. Didn't know him, but I don't ever want to live in a world with demons or evil people. And to do that, you have to stop making demons and evil people, because the only way there can be demons in the world is if you make them. Otherwise, they're people, and people go sideways because that's what the fuck they do. And if you haven't read a book, you'll think, no, people don't do this. Oh yes, people do. Oh yes, read the Marquis de Sade's life. Go ahead, read Rome, read Greece. They bend over backwards to make sure you have a good time. And yet we're over here going, oh, these people are horrible. Ooh, John Calvin would applaud you, but no, you don't get to make those type of discernments pitying them on your fucking ivory tower. You got to go make people human, so the real compassion can really get into something. So I talked to him, and yeah, just as you would think, felt creepy, and just as you would think, there's something that when you just sit with them, you're like, this isn't a normal, but you also realize how much is in their control and how much is probably not in their control. And it's really difficult because, like, if you're a cokehead, you can stay away from coke, right? Don't glamorize. Don't pick up. The program keeps working if you just come back. You know how the refrains go. But how do you stop and not pick up for pedophilia? All you have to do is close your eyes and you're right there, right? So if a person who does coke, and you're like, that poor soul, you know, it's so hard for them, and the dopamine, and it's biological, and a lot of people are really big on, you know, this is a disease. Okay. Does that extend to that guy too? And I'm not an advocate for anybody. I'm making an honest to goodness discussion, is that you can pity one, but true compassion is you go make them a real person. You go, fuck, you know why most people don't want to do that? I don't want them to be a person, because that means that shit might be like me. And so if I keep them not people, then I can sit on my moral fucking high ground and I can be better than them, and they're bad people. So now I can dump on them. And this little anterior singlet can give me a righteous reason to hate them. Yay, I'm so godlike.
I've actually been in meetings, 12-step meetings with pedophiles, and I've heard their stories, and I can tell you that they're pretty tough. You know, they're pretty tough stories. And,
They're really, yeah. And here's the thing, I'm not condoning that behavior. It happened to me. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh no, I don't care. But here's the thing, I can be where I'm at with it because I know that they're humans. I don't make demons out of people, so now I feel righteous in wanting to kill them because, oh, I wouldn't want to kill them otherwise. Yes, you would, you're a human. We're killers. True compassion is understanding that and finding the thing before it wants to go do the killing, and then saying, hey, let me listen. Because when it feels seen, heard, and understood, it's as benign as a damn chipmunk on a nice summer day. But if you put it in a closet and you put it under bars and locks and you sit there and be like, it doesn't exist, you know what it's going to do? It's going to plot your fucking death. The Vikings had a story about Fenrir. Fenrir was the wolf that eventually creates Ragnarok. You know why? Because the Aesir gods got, you know, Odin and all them got really scared. And so they said, this is going to be a big thing. So what do? They tied it up and they tricked it. And Fenrir said, I would have been your friend, but because you did this to me, I will forever have enmity. And eventually he eats Odin. Yeah, I understand that there's really no wolf. I get it. But it's a story that has a huge thing. You go and lock your friend Fenrir away. You go trick them. You go cast that out. And then you want to talk about, see, I'm peaceful and loving. No, you despot. You're a fucking tyrant. I'm calling you a fucking tyrant. You're not compassionate. You're harmless.
So that goes to the concept of accepting yourself fully, unconditionally, right? Because when people talk about, oh, I have this shadow, or I have this, or I have that, and I'd like to push it away, or this isn't me and everything. Well, the same thing, go cut off your left arm and see how that goes, right? So you have to accept yourself unconditionally as who you are before you can start actually moving forward.
So that's having self-compassion.
Yes.
And also, if you have self-compassion, you're more able to sit in a room with a pedophile and have compassion for them.
So let's translate that. Let's translate that in the way we spoke before. Compassion, not interference in other people's paths. Well, guess what? It starts with you not interfering in your path, right? And how do you do that? You get rid of the things, the preconceived knowledge, the preconceived notions that are interfering on every day in your path.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So that's what it means to have compassion to yourself. Don't interfere with your true nature.
And I'll tell you, the best way to do that, it's a practical, like we'll say, what do? Have the right boundaries in your life for yourself. Have the right boundaries.
Yeah,
Stop trying to be Mother Teresa 24/7. She wasn't Mother Teresa 24/7. She was Albanian. She was not a nice lady. She was dour. Oh, she was dour. Yeah. The thing is she didn't give a fuck. A dour woman did amazing things. And when I'm going to take it even a step further with the whole shadow, don't say I have a shadow. You are the shadow, okay? right? It's when you excise this, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I have this and I have to deal with it. No, it is you. You're still excising it. Right. So there's the 3 steps to the Taoist path. The first one is called Zen, or an actualized or a realized person, true person. But that just means you're whole. I'm a wonderful, loving, caring, kind, compassionate person who will tell you to go get fucked, probably will shoot you under the right circumstances. And I don't know,
If you have antlers.
probably look at you. It's a thing, because now none of them are good or bad. It's the proper context, right? If you're like, well, don't objectify me. I'm not objectifying you, but you're still an object. You do know that, right? I'm not going to objectify you though. And if you're like, well, I feel like you're looking at me a certain way. Okay, so you objectified yourself. First, you think I give a fuck what you look like. That's a lot of hubris. And 2, so what? The minute I don't look at you, you're going to be pissed that nobody looks at you. This is your bullshit.
So basically, in that case, is we're talking about accepting your limitations, right? When you accept your limitations, like you said before, you can actually develop, you can push those limitations. But like you talked about, create the right boundaries, create the right limitations for yourself.
Sure.
And I think that, you know, when you started off talking about safe spaces, or making sure that people were in, you know, in a really comfortable space all the time. And one of the things that I think that women have done to themselves is not allowed their own empowerment to actually, you know, to just sort of focus on what they don't have or what they need people to do so that they'll be safe or that they'll be okay, rather than to focus on their own power and taking control of any situation, you know, especially we're talking about, you know, where a woman could be raped, or, you know, if you know, going back to looking at your responsibility, where was it that I did not take care of myself? Where is it that I did not make the decision, the choice? Where did I want, you know, somebody to like me, or where, you know, wanted to belong, or whatever that is? I think the feminist movement would be a lot better if it was just female empowerment. And then also, you can't have female empowerment without male empowerment. So it seems to me that is the way you can be very compassionate, is to take charge of what it is in your life that you need to empower yourself and make those choices, and don't expect someone else to come and rescue you and make those choices for you and make you safe.
You know,
Well, I see.
the person you have to be saved from is you.
Right.
Well, that's the hardest one, right in between here.
I see a lot of women walking down the street. As I take a walk in the city, I see a lot of women walking down the street with earbuds in, looking at their phone. I mean, they've essentially taken away all the ability to see danger coming completely. You could step behind them any second and do whatever it is you want to do, because they've completely given over the responsibility for their life to society.
Because people are in a Goldilocks that this shouldn't happen. Okay, should. But here's the thing with that boundaries is that for feminism, or even women empowerment, you got to draw the boundary of what's my responsibility and leave blame the fuck on the other side of that boundary. Because the blame is what's going to kill you.
It will.
Right.
It will, because it disempowers you. You have to be a victim then. You know, if you cast yourself as a victim, someone else has to be a perpetrator. And I can tell you, I've done plenty of therapy in my life, and you know, it wasn't until I stopped blaming other people that I really recovered. It really wasn't. You cannot recover.
Either.
Yeah, exactly. You have to forgive yourself. But I think that's part of it. In what I discovered is that my resentments towards other people, or when I blamed them, the person I was the angriest at was me.
Of course, but
Yeah.
you don't want to.
You've got to go to that. You've got to go to that and see your part on it, and then forgive yourself.
But that's what I mean. When you do that to yourself, everybody's gonna get it now. You can only store so much shit in yourself, and if you keep making more, you're gonna have to store everyone around.
Yeah.
Right. So the trigger is differentiate the difference between responsibility and blame. They're not the same thing. Culpability and blame are not the same thing. Blame is a connotation. But sometimes things happen. There's no blame. It just happens.
It does.
Shit happens.
Exactly.
And
The
if
sun
you-
rises. The
Exactly.
sun sets.
like, for example, somebody, with their earbuds running and somebody walking up to them, well, that shouldn't happen. Admittedly, not ideal, and you definitely don't want that to happen. But if you look at how our species got to this point, that had a lot more to getting us here than not. And as much as it sucks, that's just something that's true. Whether you like it to be true or not, whether it resonates inside of you and standing in your truth, the power, I don't know, fuck. That's what happens. Violence and sexuality coupled are what got our species 600,000 years to here. And as much as it sucks, I'm not condoning it, I'm not advocating it. But you have to accept that's true. Then you have to accept, if that's true, then what is your due diligence in relation to that? There's no blame here. A man who has those impulses, he's got hundreds of thousands of years of inculcation in him, and maybe 0 years of somebody saying, hey, you've got this inside of you. Let's work on these coping skills to get you different acumen. Nobody, I guarantee you he didn't get that. So you basically took a loaded gun with no safety, put it in the hands of a 4-year-old and like, I can't believe he shot people. Right? So there's no blame here. It's just responsibility. But it's like, well, I'm going to walk around and that shouldn't be a part of it. So if it is, I'm just going to, you're going to what? You're going to do what if post facto? Right? So there is responsibility, knowing that that exists. You don't have to be afraid of it.
And accepting it.
Right.
Accepting that this is nature, right? Nature is always interested in what? The strongest possible reproduction, right? And it's going to play those games irrelevant of your feelings, right? And it's going to keep playing them long after you're gone.
Right. But acceptance does not mean condoning it or liking it. You can accept it without condoning it. But it is what it is. And if you're like, I refuse to accept that, then you can go ahead and write your name in the victim column now, because it's going to happen.
Acceptance is beginning to work with it, not the end. It's the beginning of the journey, not the end of the journey.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And acceptance is where you start to take responsibility.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We do need to get going here, but I wanted to just bring up one. Her name is Laura. I can't remember her last name, but she worked in the news, and she was gang raped. You probably saw some of her podcasts when she was celebrating. I can't even remember it now. Which country she was in, but they were celebrating some kind of happening that happened in that country, and because she was a woman in a country that's very patriarchal in terms of women did not leave the house without something over their heads, and she was an American correspondent. She was gang raped, and her story is so interesting because she had 2 children. She was married. She had 2 children. She was pulled away from all of the people that were shooting her, and then all the other news people, and they were just powerless to have this whole gang just take her away. And every possible bad thing happened to her, and she survived it. And why I love to listen to her, and why I think she is a symbol of female empowerment, I wish I could remember her full name, is that she did not allow herself to be a victim. She came home. She saw her husband, her children. She was in the hospital for quite some time. She recovered, but she never stopped being this woman who was central, and she just somehow found a way to not make herself into a victim. She took complete responsibility, accepted what happened to her, and just an amazing woman, and such an incredible example of what female empowerment looks like.
She didn't intervene in her own path. She accepted her path and kept going.
Yes.
Not dropping anchor and victimhood or blame or anything like that. And again, I know I've been personally told when I talk like this, it sounds like you're victim shaming. I myself have been gang.
Not at all.
I have never taken myself as a victim. It has happened. I traveled and lived in 50 different countries. shit happens in
Yeah.
places in the world. People in the West are like, this is barbarous. No, this is humanity
Mhm.
at its rawest. And when people think, well, that doesn't happen in civilized countries, you do worse. It's just inside your head. Don't sit in goddamn your ivory tower. I see you. But the fact is this is what happens when biology, psychology, emotional acumen, and people just willy-nilly going around going, oh, we're better than this. We're not this way. But I had to learn through all of that. And that incident spurned me to go, I need to understand myself in this more. Because if I don't, guess what? It's more likely to happen again.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're bringing up a really interesting point, and I would see this a lot in rooms of you know, women who'd been raped, or women, things that had happened to different people, different trauma, and I have worked with people who have, and what I notice is that something could have happened to you. Maybe it was 45 minutes. Maybe it was, for years, right? But to carry that and make that be everything that you are for the rest of your life, and no matter who you see, who you're with, you have a relationship with, and that's like, no, you don't realize this is who I am. And it's such a disservice to yourself, because you, as you said, you come in, your true nature is not that. Your true nature is not that.
Well, that's why we do, that's why there's Taoism, right? Taoism in its core is wisdom. It's not knowledge, it's wisdom. And what does wisdom do? Wisdom subtracts, right? We keep taking away all those things that burden us, that prevent us from being who we truly are on a daily basis, right? And even if things get added, well, fine, you take them away as well. You don't have to keep carrying those burdens.
Yeah, when that happened to me, there was five of them. I got back to the temple, and this goes along with compassion. So my master, he sees me, and this man had the way
Wait
of
a second, Lau. People aren't going to know what that.
gang rape.
Just, yeah,
We're
yeah.
just talking
And how old were you?
11.
11.
Okay, so my master, he sees me, and this man had the ability to just look right into you. You couldn't hide or lie or anything. But of course, when you're 11, you don't exactly know what this meant or what this was, and that's the hard part. Is it's not what happened, is what does it mean, right? So I came back to the temple, and I didn't know what it meant. I was really more shocked or whatever. And people say, whether you're in shock, you're in trauma. Yes, because something's happening you have no preparation for, no understanding of, no context for, and all these people are going to fill you up. Why? Oh, it wasn't good. Oh, what they did was terrible. They're monsters. And they're just filling in all that blank with all the best intentions, but they're filling in all those fucking blanks. My shivo did this. He goes, Talon, come here, Kulala, sit down. I was like, yeah, shivo, what happened? And I was like, so I gave him a cursory sort of omitting things, because what do you say? You don't know what, you're not even sure you. So I told him the story, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, old man, don't understand so good. Like he just somehow loses his fucking English. And he's like, tell me story again. The story. I start telling the story again. Wait. What that tastes like? Oh, what that smell like? With her hair? Oh, okay, go. And he made me tell that story, and he would stop me. And when I would keep going, he'd stop me. And then when we get emotionally, he'd stop me, and he would ask all of these questions like, was that a sheet? What color? Like he was asking these things, and it was making me like confused, but at the same time, it was kind of making me like, why are you doing this? And he's just like, go ahead, tell story. And then like we'd eat or something, then he'd go, wait, I have question. Tell me story again. And so he made me tell the story for 6 hours on the first day, 10 hours on the second day, 7 hours on the third day. By the end of the third day, I was like, I'll sign up to do it again if you just never.
Jeez.
Swear to God, I never want to tell the story again. He goes, good, it no longer rule your life. And so There's no mystery. I had gone through everything openly. I had gone through things I would probably have never gone to. But in the end, I said to him, Shifu, I don't, why did these things happen? He says, probably the deer think the same thing when the wolf bite him, but it's the nature. I was like, but why do they have the nature? He goes, oh, they have the nature? Just them? I'm like,
Yeah.
are you trying to say that I have that nature? He's like, you're different than them? Like, I wouldn't do that. They probably never think so either.
Well, and if you look at every perpetrator, they probably were a victim at some point.
Of course they were. But there's a lot of unanswered questions. I'm not making any statements here, and I'm not condoning or giving any type of. Just because I humanize someone doesn't mean I'm exonerating them. But they're still fucking humans. And if you never get to the core of, hey, what in humanity facilitates this? If we don't ever get to that, we're just going to keep making demons. We're going to keep trying to kill them, feeling we're so safe. We've killed the demon. We can execute them all. And then there'll just be a new crop that we never knew. And we'll have to execute them until eventually we're the only ones left. No, that's crazy. We better get to the understanding of why things happen, both cellularly, genetically, biologically, psychologically, culturally. These are things that are very, very important. But we don't get to them because it's evil and let's kill them. Wow, great. Thanks so fucking much, Plato. I'm really glad we got the enlightenment. Fuck. And we wonder why it keeps happening. There's not compassion. That's not compassion.
Yeah. And self-compassion is seeing the dark and the light in yourself.
Or just seeing the whole and not separating them into pieces.
Yeah, they're the same thing. But the sun laments every day. Why can't there be any light in the universe? Why do I only see darkness?
On that note,
Sounds
thank
like
you
a
for
good place
joining
to
us.
start.
We really appreciate it.
Aren't we glad we're so
Thank
light?
you, Arthur, for bringing up a great subject. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
All right, you guys take care.
Bye.